Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am today making this video with Webcam Max instead of Clipchamp. Webcam Max is a program I have been using since 2009. I used to be part of a website called Justin TV, and it is now what you all know as Twitch. Justin TV was I want to say, pioneer in live broadcasts. Everything that you know now about lives on TikTok, lives on even YouTube itself, forget all about that. Justin TV was it at the time. And I was really big on it. And through Justin TV, there was a billionaire called Alki David who created Filmon.us, and he created reality shows online, which was super fun and is something that I participated in when I was in my early 30s. And I've had this program on my computer ever since. It's a lot better because it allows me to make longer videos, Webcam Max. It will probably be discontinued one day and I won't be able to use it, but Clipchamp only takes me so far. I like this better. So good morning to everyone. It is very important that you type in chat. I know that some of you um, will be in here and listening, and you're, I know you're there, so you won't be marked absent for that. But if you don't type every answer this time, I have no way of knowing that you're there because I'm actually, n- I can't 100% guarantee that I'm going to be in chat because as soon as I end this, I need to leave for a personal commitment. I can only schedule these things for days when I can teach from home. When I go to Selbu, I it's basically like being in prison. I go in at 10:30 and I'm in prison for 6 hours because I can't leave. If there's I don't know, if there's an emergency, if something happens and I need to leave, I have to take a taxi because the first bus is way in the late afternoon. So I have to schedule these things on the off chance that I have a day, which is once every 2 weeks. So please type in chat, okay? Alternatively, if you say to me, hey, Pollyanna, I could not type in chat, my computer wasn't letting me type, get a piece of paper and one of these bad babies and write down everything on a piece of paper and send me all the answers later. But you have the alternative, which is the best one. Type in chat because then I can see your name. I can see Ulla Petter. Type the answer. I can see Guru. Type the answer. You know what I mean? So, and I know there's no Guru or Ulla Petter in our group, but I'm protecting your privacy by not saying your real names. Today is the 27th of February, 2025. This is not an old video from classes from during the pandemic. We're 5 years after that right now. So this is a video created today for your class. I've been accused of using old videos. I hope everyone has everything in place. We're going to be talking about literary devices today. First of all, and this is, like I said, type in because I might only be able to look at the chat hours after you've typed it on a replay for me to see that you were in class. Type. Type the heck out of the answers in there. Oh, but Marit has already written what I was gonna write. Doesn't matter. Marit can write the answer. Ulla Petter can write it right after. I know there's no way of knowing whether Ulla Petter copied from Marit, but at least you're participating. Let's go. First question. Please write in chat three literary devices that we've talked about in the past few weeks. And not only do I want you to type the literary devices, I also want you to write maybe a short example of each. This is going to take a little bit, so I'm going to wait. But everyone has to type, 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 type. Type three literary devices and type examples of what they are, how they're used, that sort of thing. You know a lot of them because we've been discussing them for a while. You have to remember that when you do take your exam in May, June, you will have to know these things. What's happening right now with Norwegian exams is that you're you're able to use some aids, but not all the aids that you were usually allowed to use before. So they're making it so that people cannot cheat. Like yesterday, I asked everybody to pull their watches off. This was not about the one person, it's about everyone that has a smartwatch. We're not allowed to let you have them on. And you may be a little mad at me for asking you to remove them, but when you do take the exam, you need to come in completely, bare of all of those. You won't be able to wear those. Yes, let's look at your answers. If I'm guessing without knowing what you actually wrote, I think it's fair to say that you will have written metaphor. Metaphor is one of the ones that people normally think of first because it's one of the literary devices that people use the most, even in everyday conversation, not just in literature. I also am going to guess that you put in, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you write hyperbole? That's one that we've been talking about very often in the past few weeks. We've been reading different texts. I know that reading is not something that everyone likes to do. I can get on board with that. Not, I love reading things that I want to read. I like picking a book. I love classic literature written in English. So, all the greatest British and American authors that I studied when I was growing up in the United States, going to high school, at the university, all of that. Even in Australia, I I took a course called Adolescent Literature as a part of a master's degree. I love it, but I like reading things that I want to read. So when I was assigned a book that I didn't want to read, it was not fantastic. So I understand that you might not want to read, but you have to do a lot of reading. And you need to know what kind of text you're reading. You need to know what kind of literary devices are in those texts. Yesterday, you had a written assignment. Please type in chat what type of text you thought that was. Go, because I'm going to reveal the truth to you right now. I'm happy to say that you did a good analysis. Some of you did not pick out what kind of text it was, but I'm happy to say that you're getting there. You're learning. So I can tell that you will, by the time you take your exam, everyone will know what they need to know. The text yesterday, some of you thought it was an article. It was not. It was not. I mean, anything can be considered an article for a magazine these days. But that particular text had some characteristics that made it what it was. It was an essay. Now that you know it was an essay, based on the things that you remember, or maybe some of you kept the text. No, nobody did. When I was growing up in in the 1800s, we used to keep every single piece of paper the teacher gave us and put it in a folder. So that's why I'm kind of like keep the papers, keep the papers. But I understand it's not realistic for you guys to do. So now that you know it was an essay, what kind of essay was it? Because it was an essay. It was an essay. Essays are supposed to be written with a particular structure. With a particular structure. God bless me and don't let me get sick. So, the structure for an essay. What do you divide your essays in? Go. Everyone's going to write. Ulla Peter, Marit, Mette, Joachim. I think I said his name right now. Joachim. When this person was actually in my class a gazillion years ago, I used to call him Joaquin. Everyone loved it, but I knew it was wrong. An essay is, and those of you who typed, it is structured in paragraphs. You are correct. Okay? You are correct. Here's what you're going to tell me now. Each paragraph has an average of how many, and now I'm going to say the word sentences, but you need to define what a sentence is. Please write how many sentences you need to have on average, and also please write what a sentence is. Define a sentence. So I'm thinking, and this is me trying to see into the future because I'm recording this shortly before you're gonna actually watch it. Okay? So I'm not looking at the chat right now. I'm saying this without seeing what you wrote. So a sentence. If I had to guess based on what I know that you know, you will have written something like subject and verb, or it has to be something that has at least a subject and a verb. Bang, go. Yes, absolutely. It has to have at least a subject and a verb. But what is a sentence then? If you had to give a definition for it, A sentence is a complete unit of thought, and it should have at least a subject and a verb. What a sentence is not is a title, and if you write an essay, you do not need to write subtitle like titles for each paragraph. And some of you have the habit of doing that because of you were perhaps writing a lot of factual text when you were in junior high. I know that you did a lot of that. So, and that was acceptable then. For an essay, it has to be a clean text with paragraphs. Three sentences dangling by themselves, they're not a paragraph, right? You have to learn how to follow the structure. Now, next question. What is a topic sentence? Go. Topic sentence. What is a topic sentence? All right, so I do realize that some of you think of a topic sentence exclusively as being the first sentence on a paragraph. In a paragraph that you write, for example, you write about listening to music. So your first sentence has to be what introduces the whole paragraph, right? That is a strategy that you can use when you're producing literature. Any text that you're writing, you can do that. You can use that very first. However, a sentence can also be in the middle of the paragraph, and that can be your topic sentence, or at the very end. Of course, to be on the safe side, you can write your topic sentence at the beginning because that's what's more commonly acceptable. Just like when I pointed out, pronouncing the T in often academically, I would frown upon it, and a lot of academics would, but because of usage and social media, TV, even TV, radio, music, all of that influences how language changes. So it is now, it is acceptable. But there was a time when it wasn't. There was a time when it was, there was a time when it wasn't. So I choose not to pronounce the T in often. I usually go with whatever is more academic. Is it wrong? No, linguistically it's correct, right? So you go with the more academic option always. So topic sentence at the beginning, that's what's academically commonly accepted, right? So you go with that. Now, at the very beginning of this, I asked you, and I know that for most people, it's probably not that hard to come up with three literary devices. And remember, when you open your exam booklet or when you open in a computer what it says, if it says literary devices, what they want from you is euphemism, alliteration, onomatopoeia, metonym, metaphor, symbolism. That's what they want. That's what they want. Perhaps in our region, there are other things that you can talk about as literary devices, but mostly when they say Which literary devices can you identify here? You're you're expected to know those. So let's go through them. How many do you think there are? If you had to guess, how many literary devices are there? Just type whatever you think. You might be right. You might be right. So, full list of literary devices. I found this on the internet for you. I had a lot of books before I came here. Mama is old, right? You know that. I was born in 1972. I went to school in the 90s. We carried a lot of books back then. Then somewhere along the line, the internet came in and changed everything. It came into my life and changed everything. But I don't have all the books with me. They're mostly at my mother's. So I did some research online to find a source for you, and I'm going to show it to you right now. So whatever number you put in that you think is the number for how many literary devices there are, this is the reality now. So take a look at this. Please write I want to see the reactions. Reactions, please, in chat. Look at this, right? And as I'm showing you this long list, you're sitting there thinking, Pollyanna, am I supposed to know all of those? Absolutely not. You don't need to know all of them. However, it is expected of you to know some of the most commonly used. That you need to know. You really do need to know. So, here's what I expect of you. I asked you to make a list as a challenge. I don't know how many of you did it, and I'm not going to be angry at you for not remembering or not doing it, but I asked you to look at your list that you probably have from Norwegian classes, right? And I'm going to open a Word document. I'm going to log in to my Microsoft Word, not the one that the school pays for all the teachers, but my personal one, because I'm not using the school computer for this. By the way, it would be a good idea for all of you to log off of TikTok on your school computers, whatever computer you are using your Teams account on. Just a word of of advice for you. We'll talk about this more in class. Let's look at this. And no Copilot, you can get out of my stuff. I do not want Copilot. I do not want to generate a text with AI. I'm telling all of my students not to use it. Okay, so a metaphor. How many of you wrote metaphor? Lots of you. Hyperbole. These are the ones we've been talking about lately. Yes. Onomatopoeia, not ona. And symbolism. I believe these five came up. I could bet my pinky toe on this. These came up in text that we were analyzing in class. So I know that you know this. Metaphor. Please type in chat what a metaphor is. Go. Now I'm going to show you flashcards here. And you have some different literary devices on these flashcards. So you have different types of comparisons that you can make using literary devices. There's a type of comparison like this one. My dog is as smelly as dirty socks. So this type of comparison compares two unlike things using the words like or as. For example, the dog smells the dirty socks. Like dirty socks. I should have put my glasses on for this. This is a simile. This is not a metaphor. A metaphor compares two unlike things without using the words like or as. In the image, life is being compared to a pathway that meanders. Life is not a straightforward path. Life's meandering path, right? So when you say life is a box of chocolates, that's a metaphor. But if you say life is like a box of chocolates, then it becomes the previous one, right? When you use like or as, that's a simile and not a metaphor. Now, I want you to look at this carefully. I need to move this box. Perhaps I'm going to move it right here, and I'm going to do this so you can see the whole thing. Okay. Some smug slug. You see the repetition of sounds? S, s, s. Okay. That repetition of sounds, some smug slug. Thank you, by the way, those of you who typed bless you or something. I'm guessing that you will do it. That repetition of sounds, especially in poetry, because in poetry you have rhymes sometimes, not all the time. You also have this repetition of sounds. That's called alliteration. Let's go back to this. This should be on your list as well because it's a pretty common one. Let's take on hyper. Let me see, hyperbole. There are different pronunciations for this word in different accents and in different dialects. Let's take on the most common one for them. Hyperbole is one of them, one of the pronunciations. However, I have heard people say hyperbole, but hy hyperbole. Can you hear it? I'm playing it. I can hear it in my headset. Hyperbole. What is a hyperbole? Go. Write it in chat. Remember, I'm going to be looking at this later, and if I don't see Marit's name in it, I don't see Ule Petr's name in it, I don't see Yellow Giraffe 76 names in it. Well, some people don't use their actual names, but I know what their usernames are. So if I don't see those, then I'm not going to know that you were there. So please type, what's the hyperbole? What's a hyperbole? I'm going to show you the whole list that I have here on this. I did not make this, somebody made it, but I'm going to go ahead and add it to both English, Vega and Vega 2, Vega 3. I want all of you to have it. It's very important for all the classes because you're going to be needing this next year as well. Here's the full list. There are lots of different ones in here. Is hyperbole in it? Gosh darn it. Yes, it is. There we go. An exaggeration of an idea. So, of course, we're going to go back to the very beginning when we're talking about a simile, which is a type of comparison, but is different from a metaphor because a metaphor does not need the words as or like. So you might be like, hey, Pollyanna, how come this is not a simile since the word as is being used here? Yes, but you have to go beyond that idea and look at the exaggeration of the idea, right? It's more than just the idea, it's an exaggeration, right? As big as an elephant. It's exaggerated. The notion of an elephant and anything being as big as an elephant is that exaggerated. All right. So you have to know what a hyperbole is. I'm not going to require you to know all of the literary devices, but I want you to know some of them. We're working on these today. Euphemism. Do you remember what euphemism is? If you don't remember, I taught you a nice way of telling the examiner that you don't remember something without sounding like you don't care or you don't know. You can say something like, I don't have a clear recollection of what that means. Can you give me a hint? Or can you elaborate on this? Because I don't recall having learned this, although I probably did. So you have to be eloquent, even when you tell the examiner you don't remember. Euphemism. What is euphemism? I'm going to prepare the game that we're going to play. I want you all to finish today's class with a Quizlet Live. Yeah, we're tired of Quizlet Live. Oh, I know, but this is one of the things that we can do online like this, and it works. It has worked for 10 years in my classes, and Quizlet has come up with lots of new and improved ways to learn. Blocks, test, match, checkpoint, blast. People don't really like playing blast, do they? So, euphemism. What is euphemism? What is it? Euphemism is when you soften the blow when giving a piece of news to someone, or when you use a lighter version of a sentence, right? Instead of saying, his car was destroyed, you will say, well, his car was damaged to an extent. So you're not really telling the person that his car was totaled, right? You're telling them, but you're not really telling them. You instead of exaggerating it, you're actually minimizing it. In a way, you can refer to the concept of euphemism as the opposite of a hyperbole, right? So I'm preparing a game of Quizlet Live for you. Do not use the code you're seeing on there. I'm going to ask you not to use it because I'll give you a brand new one when I come in. I would like to see people using Duolingo a lot more than they do. I see that when students stop using Duolingo, they start losing their vocabulary. So please do not give up on Duolingo. Those of you who study German, you're not my students in German, but I recommend using it. I recommend using it. So a hyperbole is an exaggeration. And when you use the literary device named just a few minutes ago, euphemism, when you use that, as a matter of fact, you're doing the very opposite of a hyperbole because you're minimizing something. You're giving someone a lighter version of whatever happened. I'm just leaving this ready because I'm gonna make one just for you to watch it while you play. Let's get into it. We're almost done with the most important ones. I want you to know these by heart because those are the ones that we have talked about very often in class. Onomatopoeia. What is an onomatopoeia? Do you remember? Do you remember what onomatopoeia is? Think of cartoons. Smash, pow, poof. Is the it is the written representation of a sound. That's what onomatopoeia is. And if you wrote something along those lines, your answer is acceptable. Symbolism. What is symbolism? Symbolism is when you apply symbolic value to an object, person, situation, and that symbolic value is what will represent whatever you were talking about. And in some cases, it's hard to really grasp what that is in a piece of literature. And symbolism, I dare say, would be very subjective. You might find symbolic value in something that I wrote when I read a poem, and that was not what I meant. But you might find that symbolic value and you might interpret what I wrote in a certain way. So this is debatable. In many aspects of literature, different professors, different academics might find different types of symbolic value on the same piece of literature. So a symbol represents something, right? When you see a white flag waving, that is that white flag has symbolic value for peace, right? So you have different ways of interpreting it. Somebody might say that the white flag represents light in the middle of darkness, but most people would say that the symbolic value of a white flag is peace, right? Last but not least, alliteration. I'll give you an example. Soft sensibility censors the repetition of sounds. Okay, I want to get on with this so that we can all move on to writing sentences using the different literary devices. So we're going to start the Quizlet. Do not use what's on the screen. Instead, you're going to use the the code I'm going to put in the chat box on YouTube for you. This is just a sample game that I'm creating here. 3 rounds.